You're listening to the uMentor Talk Show, now available on the Umoja app. I'm your host, Imran Dharamsi. On this weekly talk show, we invite professionals and teenagers to take us through their journeys and give us advice. Remember, if you have any questions for the panelists, you can always leave them in the live comments or in the Inspire app, and we'll do our best to get to them during the show. And before we start today, we just wanted to mention a bit about the Inspire platform. It's a question and answer platform for career advice in our Shi'a community. As a rising professional, you can ask for great advice from professionals in our community. And as a mentor, and you don't even have to be a professional to be a mentor, you can be a student mentoring other students. You can give advice to our community's future professionals and up and coming students. It's available via the Umoja app on Android and iOS. So we hope you all sign up and join that. And you need an Umoja account for that. Today's speaker is Sister Safiya Hasan, CEO of Heavenly Hijabs and a high school senior. At school, she's the vice president of Future Business Leaders of America and president of her school's Muslim Student Association. She also owns a hijab business, Heavenly Hijabs, and is working to serve Muslim women as a social entrepreneur. She is an active member of Idara Jaferia in Maryland, and she wants to make youth and female involvement more prevalent. So let's just welcome her to the show. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Safiya. How are you?
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. We're so happy that you could join us today, especially with the crazy college applications going on.
Definitely busy, but of course, happy to be here.
Thank you. Our pleasure. So let's start, maybe if you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and about your business.
So obviously, as mentioned, I am a 12th grader right now, in the college application process. So I started my business in 2013, 2014-ish, and that's when I started Hijab, which was in 2012. And what prompted me to start my business was when I started Hijab, I had many role models to look up to. I had my sisters, my mom, other family members. And when I found that when I turned 9 years old, some of my peers didn't exactly have the same amount of role models or the same amount of opportunities as I did. And I think what really hit me home is when one of my specific friends, she started Hijab, and I was able to match some of her outfits with some of my hijabs and coordinate with her to make her feel like she's fitting in, or that just to promote her confidence. And I think that's when I realized that there was a bigger problem in the larger Muslim women community, that people don't necessarily feel as confident in their hijab because they don't have as many options. So I guess my mom, one time, she bought me some wholesale hijabs, and at Sunday school, she was like, here, you can sell them or give them to your friends or whatever you want. And then at the end of the day, what happened was I sold them all, and I came back and I didn't have any. And I guess, that was kind of the initial moment. And from then on, I've just kind of been trying to build it up, include an array of styles, fabrics, colors, just so that I can cater to everyone's needs, not just to make money, not just to, make my own brand or profit, but to kind of fulfill every hijabi's needs. And especially because in a world like this with, prevalent Islamophobia and whatnot, it's important that hijabis are feeling confident, and not only confident, they feel happy in their hijab, and they feel that by upholding their religious choice, they can also fit in, also keep up with the modest trend styles and whatnot. So I think a culmination of those different things of confidence and providing other people of an equal opportunity.
So 2012, you must have been like really young, like 9. So that must have taken a lot of courage to, start a business at that age. So are there any, I guess, notable moments relating to that?
So yeah, I started Hijab February, leap day actually, of February 2012, so February 29th, and I was 8 years old. And business actually started around I was 9 or 10. And I think I never went in with the intention of, oh, I'm going to start a business, or, oh, like this is my goal, I'm going to be a CEO, whatnot. I've always been inclined to, office supplies, kind of being organized, having a professional persona. But I think more of the fact that I wanted to be my own manager, or kind of feel like a grown up and whatnot. I think that's what kind of promoted me. Definitely there's been people along the way who have told me that, oh, what are you doing with these prices? You're so little. What are you gonna possibly do with your life? And I
Right.
think one specific thing is at one convention I was selling at. It was the first convention I was selling at. I was 10 years old, and I forgot if it was an auntie or uncle, but someone who was much older than me, she came up to me and she was like, where's your mom? I want to buy this. Where's your mom? Who should I give the money to? And I was like, oh, this is my business. You can give me the money. And she was like, no, 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 but like, it's a lot of money. Who should I give it to? And I was like, no, like, I'm the one you should give the money to. And I think the fact that a lot of people have, this notion that only grown-ups can do certain things kind of, it was scary at first, because I remember I cried because of that lady, because I was like, oh no, people don't take me seriously. I'm only 10 years old, which, I mean, obviously it does make sense why no one would want to give a 10-year-old money, but
Right.
that kind of showed me that, sometimes you just got to go for it. It was never my plan to start a business or to, expand this much, but I think having that leap of faith and also having the motivation that I am having a positive impact definitely kept me going, despite, what other people would say.
It's interesting. So, I guess this question relates to the future of your business. How do you see yourself as a social entrepreneur, and like, what do you want to take that into, I guess, as you move your business into the future?
So obviously right now, Heavenly Hijabs is definitely a small scale business. Actually, for the majority of its time, up until maybe 3 years ago, just my community, just living in the DC area, has sustained my business, and I wasn't needing to ship or go beyond my own home. But lately, as I have sisters living in different areas and relatives in other areas too, shipping has kind of started, and I think that gradual growth has kind of made me realize that I have to be more mindful of the market that we're in now. And specifically, after, of course, college applications and whatnot, I hope to develop a fully integrated e-commerce website so that I can not only just sell to people who are within my network of like my sister's friends, my parents' friends, my relatives, but people in general, and hopefully promote them to start hijab or promote their relatives, friends, just a wider network of hijabi women or Muslim women in general. And in the future, years down, inshallah, I want to make sure that Heavenly Hijabs is not only, a profitable business, but I want to make sure that there's more value to it, specifically by adding the fact that it should tackle a social issue, or just, do something good and pay forward in society. As Muslim women, I've had a lot of friends who've struggled with their families not giving them enough confidence in their hijab, or friends and being bullied at school, or being prevented from playing on sports teams. So I think that I want to make sure that Heavenly Hijabs not only has such a wide option, like such a wide array of options, but can also maybe partner with organizations, nonprofit organizations, to promote advocacy and involvement of children, of girls schooling in Middle East or other countries, and kind of just expanding it from hijabi women to Muslim women to just women in general who are marginalized and who have these inherently, who are inherently a minority, who don't exactly feel as confident with themselves.
Wow, that is really amazing. And your business couldn't really have been started without your local community. So maybe if we want to talk next about your connection to Idara.
Yeah, so I've been going to Idara Jaferia in Maryland my whole life. For as long as I can remember, it's been like a second home to me. Just to prove that, before Corona and stuff, my parents, they used to tell me that, oh, if you don't finish your homework, then we're not going to Idara over the weekend. So it was literally my motivation to,
Like your
get through the
second
week
home.
so I can go to Idara. So, most people's parents take away their children's privileges, like their phones and whatnot. But my parents were like, you don't get to go to Idara if you don't do this. So that's just a small little thing. But as I've grown up in the Idara community, I've seen how we kind of work. And I think something that lacks in many Desi communities is youth involvement, because Obviously, the youth aren't the pioneers of the community. Our respected elders have been the ones who've tirelessly put in the effort to build these
Right.
communities. And I think sometimes the youth of these days kind of find it hard to insert themselves or find a way to make their opinions voiced in the community, because it is kind of intimidating being amongst such experienced and honorable elders of the community. So I think the fact that our youth group wasn't exactly, the most sustainable or the most established, I think seeing other youth in the community, there were plenty of us, and we all kind of knew of each other, but we weren't exactly friends. Like, there were certain people who I've seen every week of my life, but I couldn't tell you something about them, or I couldn't tell you maybe their favorite color or even what school they go to. So I think the fact that I saw so much potential in the community, that I just had to go for it and take that leap of faith, because if you think about it, the youth are definitely the future, and if the youth aren't united, then it's a really scary future, because at every center, there's like a staple person for the technology, there's like a staple person for someone who helps in the kitchen. And thinking about my own generation, I've wondered who will be the people of my generation in those roles. So I was in 2017 at the general body meeting. The general body meeting, I feel like this happens in a lot of other places, but not many youth show up. It's mostly, those the founders of the center and, other elders. And I think I went in with this. I was like, okay, I need to say something, because even though I'm only 14, I definitely need to try and, try to spark some youth involvement. And I remember I wrote like a whole spiel at home, and I was like, okay, I need to, nail this. I need to make sure I say all the right things. I got all dressed up.
That's intimidating.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And when it was the Q&A portion and they called on me, and everyone else was asking their questions from their seats, and they called me to the podium, and I was like, oh no, like, what are they doing? I don't want to speak in front of all these people. And I remember my dad and my grandfather were there, and they both, mashallah, have been very involved in the community too. So I guess, that kind of pushed me to also go forward with it. And basically, I started off by saying how Idara Jaferia is one of the biggest and most prominent centers in North America. And if we fail to channel the energy that we have, then, it can be very detrimental to our future. And we wouldn't want all the effort of our founding fathers, our respected elders, to go to waste just because the youth aren't united. So I advocated for a youth liaison to the board of directors in order to establish a youth group. And I think it was a few months later, I got added into a WhatsApp group. And the WhatsApp group, I was the youngest, and most of the people were 10 years older than me, and they were discussing, what should we do for a youth group? And I still was like, okay, but there's no one my age, and I think I'm youth. I was 14. I think I was 7th or 8th grade at the time, and I was like, oh God, but I need to find more people who are my age who are willing to take this on. And it was hard, because it is intimidating to be amongst such, people in professional jobs, people who have more experience than me. And obviously I was 14. What am I going to say? My opinion didn't really have as much weight as compared to theirs. So I think slowly, as I kind of dropped hints like, oh, maybe we should do something to appeal to middle school, high school students, as opposed to people in the undergraduate age group, and trying to insert my own opinions while also obviously respecting theirs. And 2018, one of my friends and I, we were like, okay, it's Ramadan. We have to make use of this. Ramadan, everyone is on such like a community high. Everyone's, super excited to go to the masjid every night. And it was a really great time to kind of take advantage of that. So we planned a game night, and it was a Sari game night. So it was all night. We planned some games. We had board games, we had icebreakers, and the turnout was about 150 to 200 people. And we were blown away, because we were like, okay, so there was definitely an interest, and we were like, okay, so this is what we can do. And then eventually from there, we had a town hall meeting, kind of came up with a group of people. And of course, there's ways to go in terms of establishing a fully functioning, stable youth group. And especially, during Corona time, it's hard to come up with sustainable online events. But I think definitely we're on the path, inshallah. And I think seeing also other masjid in the United States youth group also rise up, it's kind of like, oh, there's people like this, but outside of my own area. And I think, that kind of promoted me to step up and make sure that youth involvement is actually there, because of the visionary mindset that I had for the future.
So I really resonate with what you're saying, that a lot of communities have that issue where the youth group doesn't exactly cater to the youth. And what you're saying, I guess, is your advice for starting a youth group is kind of have one event where a lot of people come, and then kind of take that and start organizing from there. Is that, and then what other advice would you maybe have for communities who are looking to pull together an actual functioning youth group as opposed to kind of just a quiet WhatsApp group chat?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was definitely intimidating because it's a lot of work. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, because
Mhm.
a lot of people simply just complain or, criticize, but don't exactly offer their own help. So I think if you find just one person who's willing to put in the same amount of effort as you, and I just had one friend and we pulled it off
Right.
because we really, we both had the same vision. We were like, we really want to do this. So I think once you find that one person who you align with, then you're set, because you can motivate each other. And I think, don't be worried about what people say, because worst comes to worst, you have a small turnout, but it doesn't necessarily mean the event's a flop, because we've planned several events where, the turnout wasn't exactly great, but it doesn't matter, because you can still make use of an event and you can still
Mhm.
have a really good time at an event with only 10-20 people, the same type of fun that you have with an event of 150 people. So
Right.
I don't think that people understand that, people isn't necessarily quantifying success, because
Mm.
um, as long as you make an impact on just one person, then I would consider my
Mhm.
job done. And, you're never going to please everyone. And I think that's something that took me a while to realize, because we did a survey after the game night, and people gave some suggestions that, weren't exactly the easy to read, because we were on,
Mhm.
me and my friend, we were on the high. We were like, wow, we just did that. People were coming to us, parents were coming to us and saying, my kid really needed that. Thank you so much. And,
Mhm.
those kinds of words were really encouraging. But at the same time, there were people who mentioned, oh, maybe you should have done this. Maybe you shouldn't have done
Right.
that. And I think once you learn to kind of develop a thick skin and know that you're not going to please everyone, it's kind of really important, because then and only then will you be able to take their advice and then kind of grow from it. And I think another piece of advice is that you can't, let it get to you, or you can't, have this what if mindset. You just kind of have to go for it, because worst comes to worst, people don't show up. Again, people don't show
Mhm.
up, or people have a bad time. But if you don't have these negative, or if you don't have these experiences that may not exactly be the best, then how are you going to grow? Because trial and error, you
Exactly.
can't just keep spending months and months planning one event, but then you have
Mhm.
burnout because you have to spend more months planning another event. If you're consistent, then you kind of get the hang of it. It's like, playing a
Yeah.
sport. You can't just not join a team because you're too busy practicing. You kind of have to, get experience yourself, play in games. You might mess up a little. You might, not do your best. You might lose a few games, but at the end of the day, it's what makes you a better player.
Mhm. That's such great advice. Thank you so much. So, we are not done yet. We have to just bring in one very special announcement. Um, So, River City Sportsplex and Umoja Games 2021 are up for 3 awards through Sport Events Magazine: the Best All-Star Sports Venue, the Best All-Star Multi-Purpose Sports Venue, and the live or virtual sports event to watch in 2021, Umoja Games 2021. So, if you want us to win, visit the link in the description. It's at the bottom to vote. You can vote once per day. So, we hope you vote every day for those 3 venues and our Umoja Games until December 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern. So everyone who's watching this right now, click the link in the description after the show, of course. Watch the rest. And yeah, we hope to win. So we have a few questions come in from our Inspire platform. And I think they fit in really well here because you're talking about how you run your business and how you're involved in the youth group and, of course, college applications and school going on. How do you balance your academic duties, leadership roles, and running a business?
Yeah, so obviously right now, business has been kind of low because
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to satisfy people's needs from so far away, and not many people need a bunch of new hijabs. But
Hmm.
in general, a piece of advice I would give is for me personally, I have a planner. I write down everything. I color code my events. I color code, schoolwork, business work, application work. And I have this, routine and schedule mindset that kind of gets me through, and list making. But that's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. Some people naturally work with organized chaos, and that's perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
But once you find what works best for you and your way of kind of keeping yourself self-disciplined and motivated, then I think you kind of have to use that to keep yourself in check. And I think it's really hard when you fall into like a procrastination kind of cycle, because
Mm-hmm.
then you'll feel groggy and then you won't really feel motivated. So I think
Right.
personally, I keep time limits on my apps on my phone. I start my work at even times, like 2:45, 3:15. That just keeps me going. And I think it's just important to plan out your time, and also don't overwhelm yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself, because I
Mm-hmm.
used to be like, oh, but my grades aren't good enough, but how am I supposed to teach at Sunday school and have a good business? But I think, once you kind of
Right.
cut yourself some slack and understand your own capabilities, then it makes it a lot easier to not only like feel more confident in yourself and feel happy
Mm-hmm.
with yourself, but it also makes you more productive, because at the end of the day, your mind is happier when you're more productive. And it's kind of hard to understand, why we put off being productive for so long. Like, we know it's going to feel good, but I don't know why we just can't get ourselves to start being productive. But I think
Mm-hmm.
once you are self-disciplined, and once you kind of have your own system of doing things, then you'll definitely be able to achieve a lot that you want to. And I think another important thing is to understand that everything happens for a reason. And if something that you're really trying for doesn't happen, if your business doesn't do well at a certain event, or if you don't get into a certain college, then
Right.
it's okay. Like, it's going to be fine. Everything happens for
Mm-hmm.
a reason, and Allah really knows best. And I think one motto that's helped me get through just high school, everything, is make dua, do your best, and leave the rest to Allah, because that's like kind of insulation that you won't have any regrets. It's like a foolproof dua, that if you try your best
Mm-hmm.
and put in sincere effort and have the right niyat also, and leave the rest to Allah, then you're going to be in the best hands, because Allah is obviously the best planner. And I think sometimes it's hard when, you do bad on a test and you're like, dang, I really studied for that. But, at the end
Right.
of the day, it wasn't best for you. So having that mentality definitely keeps me going, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
whatever, negative is happening to me, it's happening for the best reason, even though I may not understand it.
Especially now when everything is so crazy,
Mhm.
I assume that mindset really helps. Um, okay, so let's transition a little bit into more about yourself and your future. So, what are you looking at as like your major in school next year?
Yeah, so I am, inshallah, I will be majoring in religious studies, or just religion in
Mm-hmm.
general. With also, hopefully, I will pursue entrepreneurship or business, some sort of that aspect of me, because obviously, Heavenly Hijabs is a combination of both religion and business. So it only makes sense
Right.
that I would take those career paths.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of career specifically, I'm not exactly fully sure, but some options that I have are either, fully taking the religion route and, trying to, inshallah, reach a PhD and,
Mm-hmm.
teach, because this year recently, I found out that, within schools, the public school system specifically, there's a lot of misinterpretation and inaccuracy taught about Islam and other
Yeah.
religions. So I think, teaching religion from, obviously, without any bias, and, straight from the books, our books, instead of, the textbooks that may have inaccurate
Mm-hmm.
information. I think that will definitely help mitigate many of the problems where people associate negative things with Islam. And then second option I have is definitely something with keeping Heavenly Hijabs alive, and adding that, social entrepreneurship part, but on a grander scale. Because currently, or recently, we've implemented starter packages, which are basically
Wow.
complimentary, 3 complimentary hijabs and a pair of pins that we give to girls who just start hijab. So it doesn't matter, how
Mm-hmm.
old you are, where you live, you'll get that complimentary package. And I think once I started doing that aspect of social entrepreneurship, and seeing, genuine smiles on girls' faces when they receive that, I think that kind of, emboldened me to have that same impact, but on a grander scale. So that's another option. And then the third option is definitely something in the nonprofit sector, and providing aid to not only women, but just Muslims in general, and using, my religious study background to kind of help go into certain places who may be less fortunate and kind of pay it forward to the other communities.
Interesting. And actually, there is. I know you didn't say Islamic studies; you said religious studies, but nevertheless, that's relatively uncommon. Although I guess recently, it's been becoming more common. But what motivates you specifically to pursue that, and why do you think others should pursue it?
So, I think, after a Ziyarat trip in 2016, I've kind of just had like an awakening kind of situation where I realized that, again, with the misinterpretation and inaccuracy of Islam, I found that, even within our own community, there are a lot of people who, don't have madrasas to go to every week, or there are a lot of people who, don't know which books to start with because it's overwhelming. As Shia, we have so many books, so many other resources that we can use to like, learn about our religion. So I think taking on an Islamic studies route can allow me to kind of help my own community, but also like can help my own community within, the Shia community, the Sunni community, because at school, my MSA was, predominantly Sunni Muslims. And the fact that I would introduce them to just small pieces of information, when I would read namaz at school, I would have my turba with me, and they would ask, oh, what's that? And then, kind of giving them a brief intro about Karbala and whatnot. So I think an Islamic studies route can be multifaceted in the sense that I can benefit, my own Shia Muslim brothers and sisters, but also non-Muslim brothers and sisters.
That is great. And then I think we've already talked about this last one, the challenges you've encountered in your business, but we didn't exactly talk about some of your extracurricular activities and maybe some of the challenges you've encountered there. So, like we said at the beginning, you're vice president of Fbla and then also president of MSA. So, I guess, well, what are some challenges you've encountered with those?
So for MSA specifically, I've been an officer for 3 years, and I've been in MSA all 4 years of high school. But again, we have a really big Muslim community. Our MSA has been like up to 50 members, which is obviously a really big number of Muslims at school. And obviously, because there were so many Sunnis, as someone who was in an officer position, it was kind of hard that they'd be talking about some Sunni specific beliefs, and as a Shia, in an officer position, I would also feel that it's my right and it's my responsibility to educate them about my own beliefs, not necessarily imposing it on them and telling them to all become Shia, obviously, but educating them, because a lot of Sunni people don't necessarily know a lot about what Shia Islam is. Obviously, we've seen that a lot with anti-Shia protests recently, and I think that's definitely been a challenge because we would have meetings, and it would be during Muharram. And we had this one meeting on Shab Ashur one time, and the other officers were like, let's play a game today. And I was like, okay, or we can have a sort of discussion, because a lot of people don't necessarily know about Karbala. I must have kind of been between balancing my role as an officer, but also my identity as a Shia in MSA. For Fbla, I think the fact that
and actually, I don't think everyone might not know what Fbla is. If you want to maybe introduce it briefly first.
Yeah, so Fbla is Future Business Leaders of America. It's a national club that's in many schools on a middle school, high school, and college level. And at my school, my chapter is about 130 people. So Fbla is a pretty big part of my school. And I think for Fbla, I've obviously had an interest in business since, before I entered high school, as, I started my business when I was like 9 or 10. And I think kind of understanding business from an academic perspective was kind of hard to adjust, because I've always known, you buy the hijab for this much, you sell it for this much, and it just kind of works out. But I think, once I understood the more academic side to it, the technical terms and whatnot, I think that kind of opened up a door of a lot of other things I could do for my own business. And it was kind of overwhelming at first, because freshman year I was bombarded with all these different terms, and I was like, okay, but how can I do it? How can I just, do well in this class, but also apply it to myself? And I think, it was kind of overwhelming, just having so many, new things that I can try, but not knowing where to start.
That's such a good mindset, though, like learning something in class and then not just thinking, oh, I have to study it to get an A on the test, but actually thinking, how can I apply this to my own business? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So we have just one final thing. What is your final piece of advice to people who are maybe a bit younger than you who also want to make an impact?
Mm-hmm. So, definitely a piece of advice, other than the fact that everything happens for a reason and make dua, do your
Mm-hmm.
best, and leave the rest to Allah, is that don't be fixated on someone else's timeline, because there's such a stigma around, oh, when I grow up, I want to do this. I could have easily, when I started hijab, said, oh, when I grow up, I want to have a hijab business. But, instead, for me, it was my time to start my own business. And I think the fact that a lot of people are just like, okay, later, if you procrastinate, your dreams till later, then you're not necessarily guaranteed a success story. And
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily also have this mindset that you have to abide by people's views of what you should be doing, because
Yeah.
obviously I've told you that people didn't think I was suitable to have a hijab business or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So I think the fact that if you feel like something is right for you and you want to do it, then don't wait. Just take that leap of faith, because as long as you keep procrastinating about it and thinking about it, then you're going to try to convince yourself that it shouldn't happen or that it's a bad idea. So I think once you kind of go for it, then you'll actually be able to have your dreams actualized. But also going into this, make sure you have faith, but also be rational and understand that you have to do hard work. You have to understand that it may not be best for you, and that's okay, but you've tried. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to aim for the moon and land amongst the stars, you can't, not do work. You can't just say, oh,
Yeah.
I tried, but you didn't put in the effort. I couldn't just be like, oh, I'm going to start this business, but not, put in the effort of reaching out to people who would want my hijabs, or, putting in the effort of packaging orders, and all these other small things that do take up time. I think it's important that people understand that you're not going to achieve your dreams just because you want to. You have to achieve your dreams because you have to work for it.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, we're so happy that you decided to come on, and we really enjoyed hearing all the advice you had to share with us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure. So join us next week for another great show, a conversation with Sister Huda Gharib. Sister Huda is a social justice education PhD student who teaches individuals skills to critically judge the media to which they are exposed. And that show, it's going to be a professional edition show. So it'll be hosted by Sister Fatima Al-Sayed. And that is next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube Live. Umoja Outreach Foundation, uniting and empowering the Shia community.